You are listening to The Diary of a Wannabe Writer, presented by Richard A. Boxshall, in which I chronicle my life and attempts to become a professional writer by, doing some writing, daily, hopefully. Hello, you're listening to The Diary of a Wannabe Writer. The date today is Sunday the 28th of July. You nearly got a podcast yesterday, actually, because whilst I was driving into work before my Singapore flight, I thought of something to say. And then I got to the briefing room ahead of everybody else, and I thought, well, if I can get 6 minutes to myself, I can record the podcast. And literally, the moment I made that decision, somebody else walked into the briefing room, and I didn't want to look like an idiot by sitting here, or sitting there, should I say. And, but I was going to talk a little bit about British music again, because I kind of realised recently that an awful lot of what's in our top 40 is not English artists, or not British, should I say, artists. For this argument, as it were, I'm going to say it's a British artist counts as anybody from the British Isles. So that's Scottish, English, Welsh, Northern Irish, or Republic of Irish. Those are the groups of people that I count as British, as in the British Isles, not Great Britain. So once I kind of thought, well, let's have a look at the top 40 and see how many of these artists there are in the current top 40. And I did this a couple of days ago. So it's the live chart now, the one that was released 2 days ago. And I discovered that out of the top 40, there were only 12 British artists. In fact, it's not even 12 British artists. It's 12 British songs, because I think there's a number of artists that are repeated more than once. So looking at this, we've got Miles Smith with Stargazing, Hosier, got a couple of Charlie XCXs, we've got a Coldplay. So literally, I decided to create a British artists top 40. So all I did was I went through the official chart top 100 and just included the British as defined earlier, artists. And and by the time I did the top 100, I got to position number 30, and I wanted to do a top 40, but I got to position number 30 in the top 100 and ran out. So in the top 100 UK best-selling singles, there are only 30 British tracks. And again, it's not British artists, because 3 of those are Dua Lipa. You've got at least 3 Charlie XCX, at least 2 Coldplay. You've even got 2 Fleetwood Mac. So we're not talking about stuff that's new. And there's a Natasha Bedingfield track from 10 years ago. So in the top 30, in fact, you've got at least 5 tracks that are not recent at all. Now, I was absolutely determined to do a top 40. So what I decided to do was go to the previous week's top 100 and find the highest ranking tracks that were not in this week's top 100. And this just gives you an idea. So the next 3, and I had to do that twice. I had to go back through last week's top 100 and then the previous week's top 100 to get my 40 tracks. Isn't that madness? Yeah, I thought so too. And just to give you an idea, number 31, so this was the week, these were gleaned from the week that we got into the European football final. So at number 31 was 3 Lions by Baddiel Skinner and the Lightning Seeds. Number 32 is Fat Les Vindaloo. And number 33 is New Order World in Motion. So they are 3 songs that had dropped out of the chart the previous week that were only there because of the football. Okay, and incidentally, how Fat Les Vindaloo got listened to more than New Order's World in Motion is just beyond me. It just goes to prove that the world is completely insane. Vindaloo is a stupid track. World in Motion has got John Barnes doing a very bad rap in it, but it's still really entertaining. And hey, it's by New Order. So it's a really depressing thought that the top 40 British selling tracks had to be gleaned from 3 top 100s. So 30 from this week's, and then the others, ones that dropped out over the last couple of weeks. So as an exercise, I'm actually going to try and maintain this. So I have published a playlist on Spotify, if I can find it. It is called UK Artists Top 40, open bracket, 26th of July 2024, close bracket. I shall put a link to the playlist in the show notes. There isn't a version on Apple Music, so I'm not subscribed to that, I'm afraid, so it will only be on Spotify. But yeah, and I'm going to, for the next few weeks, I'm just going to compile a UK Artists Top 40 and just see, because I strongly feel that, you know, as someone who lives in Britain, in the British Isles, we ought to... I'm not saying there's anything wrong with your Noah Kahans and your Chapel Roans. In fact, Chapel Roan I really, really like. But there's something, you know, in the 90s, particularly when the Britpop thing happened, I would say... I will go back and look before a future podcast, but I would certainly go to say that I would guess about 75% of our chart was probably British. I might be wrong, but currently, this week's, it's 30%. 30%, and there's only a couple of tracks in the actual top... that's 30% in the top 40. Oh no, actually, and exactly 30% in the top 100 as well, 30 out of 100. And that's really, really bad. So not only am I going to listen to the UK Artists Top 40 that I've created, I will continue to do this, just to give me an idea of how well or badly we're doing. And I'm looking at this, and the only acts I've really heard of before... I mean, I've been listening to the charts for a little while now, but the only ones I've actually heard of... I have heard of Hosier. I've heard of Charlie XCX. I've heard of Coldplay. I've heard of Dua Lipa. I've heard of Natasha Bedingfield. I've heard of the Scripts. Oh, God, you've got Bronski Beat in there, Small Town Boy. So that's an old track coming back into the charts. Viva La Vida by Coldplay. Fleetwood Mac, Natasha Bedingfield. But there's lots I haven't heard of. So yes, it's an interesting exercise. Anyway, I am in Singapore as we speak. It is, it's 1 o'clock UK time, which means it's 8 o'clock, 8 p.m. Singapore time. It was a very long flight, nearly 13 hours. I'm absolutely exhausted. I won't be doing any writing. Well, I'm going to be I'm in Singapore time, so it's 8 o'clock at night. I'm not going to be doing any writing tonight. But my intention is at some point tomorrow to do some more work on chapter 33 of Empress of the Trees, and I will update you on here. I might even try and live stream it. We'll see if the hotel Wi-Fi is good enough to do that. Anyway, rant about the lack of British music in the British chart over, although I'm sure I'll return to it. Thank you for listening, and I'll talk to you again tomorrow. Bye-bye. You have been listening to The Diary of a Wannabe Writer, presented by Richard A. Boxall. Thank you for tuning in to my random ramblings, and if you'd like to know more about me or my projects, visit my link tree at linktr.ee/Richard Wright, capital R, capital W. Thank you for listening.